ibono ale kikim zelin tentu tadi cumi som pangalami mo oloren mi hong join itino ikipat maun patiang king konsak dinga pumang sama sen pa chap na hong le hen lang doto le kipat itu mo
pa chap jeng te ole la zangai na te zikin lal pa program ka sim te holo ting thei ding anang man hun phala hong pe mingin kala gum galo nang man la lo tin sak zikin ka ki pa po ei pui tu dinga a hi lo le tu ni hun ei mat pi ding ka chil teo nang man kim taka pang thei ding alal pa hun pha la pi amau le dam na la pi zikin le ka ki pa kit wa hi tu hin lal pa tunia ka program teo nang ma khutala na technical lama boinam lo wa a hi lo le su boi theina tampi te la kanang manung vengin lang tunia kagam sungu numeite dan le ai lo numeite kan khu le ai lo le chon dan te ho kanam sungu a zil thei dinga kamun ma teo ka chil na dung zui hin lal pa amau le ka kinep gol ta ka hung gen pik theu ke hun le lal pa phat chup na ka nei the ne nang man pan pi ding le kum don ki ta he ka program te nang man het pin lang mong pi ding in zo su ka lal pa de tak je christ time kong don zo he amen
amen kuyen patnalam manotai tino 6:30 kiti 6:33 here introduction to keyboard ball zelin ten masapena Vaiphei Customary law kiti hi pule pada ene la kiti seka pule pada na hi Vaiphei no meite chon di dan ti hotam pitak ala kigiana tu modern society hitang pi a thing tang mi telen a tribal society ten customary law hi ala kingai kho ma jing ala kingai kho chau le lo sarkar pa government of India le tribal legislation at administration to mau customary law dung zuya hi hen 80 ben tienga Indian Penal Code in le a chunga asanga le customary law hi koi mo zo hi la le zi customary law bang chana hi ikithu pi thei dia mo zi hi ipula pate Christian ala sum a Christian ala hi mawo da ala si ma hi ji thu lam pang hin elle e khang thakten ipule pa da ni tanu te a ding le no me a ding hi bang bari la si mam ti legal perspective dinga Dr. Marcy Kaute, Law Faculty, Delhi University, AK Holy PD Umma. Marcy, you're comfortable in Vaiphei and English, no?
I'll try in the Vaiphei language, but in our language, but I think I'll be more comfortable in English.
Dotak le nujunro sa hile Women Commissioner ikiswan pima maziyang Manipur Women Commissioner le la member here to ex officio member here. Also Dr. Mary Vaiphei le Raymond College HOD History Department ama le Vaiphei Customary Law ban tiang again aji thu hin kiki holim khomna ne hitino jo le question answers ban tiang ele kiki self awareness le ban tiang le dani bangola adik ai kimem elo le sang dang lam thei diam bangam pilam in tu ni ta kan kiki hoiti dingin kiki phat sakahia ma sapenin mercy khauten ko in katin azoi ki patmaun pumang sama sla record panata
kapanta he
okay zi tu ni meeting hi ki record hi azek chu future ading ale supai mo tak ki gen nam level ki gen hi zi ka itu ge no presentation le hi thaile I will request all the three resource person to also give us a writing ki holim now mo the thing ki article well can publish nom di here so journal for more dissemination of this knowledge question answers rounds more all in future piping so may I give time to Mercy? It's 6:35 right now.
Thank you so much. Very good evening to all of you. I think I've already been introduced, and so I just want to say that I'm very glad for this opportunity. And as we were just talking before we formally started the program, I think it's very essential that we have discourses on, our customary law, especially from the gender perspective, because, like quite rightly, pointed out during the conversations that Vaiphei society is not just about men; it's also about women. And when we talk about customary law, from a legal perspective, it leaves me very uncomfortable because the research that I've done, the studies that I've done, what I see is that the status of women needs to change, and it needs to change for good. Because I think women, and it's a social construct, but when we look at our Vaiphei society, what I see is that we women, we are, not given the same entitlements. So from a legal perspective, there are three aspects that I really want to highlight this evening, and I will avoid going into details. So when we look at the Constitution of India, we know that, fundamental rights are sacrosanct. It's so fundamental that nobody should be deprived of them. The most important, or one of the most common fundamental rights that we know is on equality. And if you look at Article 14, we look at Article 15. So I suppose we all have studied fundamental rights at some point in our life, where we say that there should be no discrimination on the basis of gender, on the basis of sex. But my question is, do you think in the Vaiphei society, based on our customary laws, there is equality that we follow in the true sense of the term? Equality in the sense of what the Constitution lays down for us. When we talk about Vaiphei customary laws, three main aspects that really troubles my mind is one on the right of inheritance. If sons and daughters are equal, why are we still not given right to inheritance? Of course, we will have many arguments in relation to, what happened in the past, because that is what our customary law stated, that women, we get married. So I'm a Khawte today. I haven't changed my name, but I'm married to a Guitian man. So if I look at it from that perspective, and one of the, my field research, when I came across a couple of women, and I would ask them if they were okay with the fact that they don't have the right to property. They said that's okay. So they don't want to go against it. But in today's time, is it fair that we deprive a woman of her rights based on gender? Is that not hitting on one of the fundamental rights of equality? Then the second aspect which troubles me again is, what is the status of women in dispute resolution? So when we look at our Vaiphei society also, we are very reluctant to go to the courts. There's something called legal pluralism, which we are still not aware of, because legal literacy, not just in our society, but in India as a whole, is very, very low. No. So we all have the system of the Kingsman Council, which we call Insundukta. So in that sense, where is women? Do women really participate? Because we have so many disputes. See, when we talk about marriage, marriage is in the church. It's a holy matrimony. But divorce is always done through customary laws. So in case of a divorce, unless a woman is a part of the dispute, she's never made to be, she's never a part of the insundong. The Chanu. No, we have Chanu. What is the role of a Chanu? She is to cook, and she's to serve, and she's to, prepare tea, and her role is confined to that of the kitchen, even when it's a dispute resolution. So unless the woman is one of the parties to the dispute, she's never been made an audience, leave alone she's never in the role of a decision maker. So when the decision, when disputes are resolved through the customary practices, is that really gender neutral? That's my question. So when we talk about child custody, now that I'm in Manipur for a while, what really interests me that I was going through Manipur, the Lamka post the other day, I think just a week back, and I saw that there are two cases that has been filed in the family court for custody, and these estranged couple are from another community, one of the tribal communities. So now people are becoming aware, and now we're going to the courts, because when we talk about child custody, better for child custody, it's the best interest of child that is kept in mind. But when we talk about dispute resolution in our, within the realms of our customary Vaiphei customary law, the first guardian is always the father. It's also under the Hindu laws, it's also under the Muslim laws, the Mohammedan laws. But when these people go to the Waqf board, or when they go to the family court, the best interest of the child is always kept in mind by the magistrate. But when we talk about dispute resolutions with regard to child custody, the chances of a woman giving the mother having the custody of her child is always very, very negligible. And at this point, I just want to bring to your knowledge the MIZO Act, Divorce and Marriage Act of 2014. Now what the Mizos have done is that the law clearly states down that till the child becomes 3 years of age, the custody will belong to the mother. So the child's custody until the child is 3 years is with the mother, and after that we will see where the child wants to go, because then the best interest of the child is important. And the Mizo Act very clearly mentions, the best interest of the child. But when we talk about our Vaiphei customary law, one of the main problems that we have is that it's uncodified. Now, I don't mean to say that, let's codify a law because that's going to be the best option. No, I can't say that. And in this context, I just want to also cite the SDG Sustainable, the Development Goals of 2030. What does it say about customary law? It says that don't remove them, but amend them so that they are in the same, so that they are accommodating of the changing times. Because if we attempt to remove our customary laws, no, there'll be a vacuum. How do we fill that vacuum? So it becomes very important for us also to understand the distinction between customary laws and customary practice. More customary laws and customary practice are not the same thing. So let's say today we amend the laws and we say that women should be given inheritance rights. No, if there's a law that brings. But if the general public can't identify with the new law, will we not carry on with the customary practice? That's one thing that keeps troubling my mind every time I talk about customary laws, because law is meant to bind us together to come to a consensus. But if we codify law, again, one of the fear is that decisions may be taken by people who are not even aware of the tribal ethos, and that's very, very important again. But in trying to keep up with the tribal ethos, many times we deprive a woman of her fundamental rights as well, because we are depriving her of a voice when it comes to dispute resolution. If there is a woman who goes to the court, and files a case of domestic violence, what are we going to do? The society is going to keep her out because she's loud. That's how we are tagged. Unfortunately, this, being brutally honest about my opinion, but this is how we like to tag a woman. Oh, this woman, again, him, this and that. We are still not willing to accept a woman if she's vocal. She's not doing anything bad, but what does our customary law tells us? That a woman should behave a certain way. Now, I'm not saying that our customary law is altogether derogatory, not at all. But sometimes, if we look at the customary law, it is very, very limiting the rights of a woman as well. That's number one. That's number two. And I also just, though it is not within the contours of the discussion today, but many times I also wonder what is the status of religion. How far do we allow religion to determine the position of a woman? How do a woman navigate her way through religion? Because religion has been a very, very important factor of change in our tribal society. Education became one of the main, agents of change. Previously, we look at our grandfather's time. There was no woman priest at all. But how many women priests do we have today? For instance, even in Lanka, we have the GPC, and we do have women graduates from there. But I don't know. There could be possibilities of women pastors and women being getting the titles of a reverend. But I personally haven't come across a single one in our community, to be honest. So, and during my interactions with a lot of women, when I was collecting my data, also what I usually, whenever I ask them the question that, are you comfortable with how a woman is positioned in the society through customary laws? And they would say, yes, it's okay. But we know that our society is heavily patriarchal. Otherwise, this evening discourse would not have happened in the first place. There's all of us who are gathered here. I believe something is there which questions to which we are trying to find answers today. And then they would tell me that, and they would quote a very common Bible verse that says that, the Bible says that man is the head of the family. So sometimes we women also, we are so lackadaisical in our attitude, we are so comfortable in the position that has been given to us that we are okay. And then, we don't question it because we are afraid that we may not be accepted by the society where we are to reside and where we are to move around. But that is also very, very dangerous, because I think it's time we all speak up, And whenever we talk about religion also, the role of women, I don't think it's equal to that of a man, because what my study, like theoretically speaking, what it reveals is also that women have a woman wing. But even we have the philanthropic organizations, right? But how often do we come across a woman who's actually in the position of the key decision maker? And I'm happy to admit that Ulinboy has been the only lady that I know has been in the position of, Zirlai president. They're also in the national capital. And, so how many other people how many other women can be quoted who are there in the position, of actual decision making? So somewhere, we give women that, that position of being made to believe that we are equal, but I don't think we are equal. I don't think we have ever been treated equally, and that really troubles me because it's really going against the fundamental rights and the fundamental principles of our constitution. We talk about right to life, we talk about right to freedom of trade and profession. But if and there was a question that I asked also that are you okay if your daughter, your wife, or your sister would turn politics? Full-time politics. And the answer that I would get was no, I think it's good if they're in academics, it's good if they're in medical line, the caregiving kind of a situation, because we are not comfortable with the idea that we are being ruled by a woman or that a woman is doing better than a man. And if I have to question this on the basis of customary law and tradition, I think many would say that this is how it is because when we talk about marriage also, we have the bride price. No, I don't know how we really would be the nomenclature in our dialect, but what is the whole idea of a bride price as well? Because this is also being used a lot by men, whereby I think somewhere it's almost similar to what we have like the triple talaq among the Mohammedans, where they say talaq, talaq, talaq and done. And so which is why the Supreme Court had to intervene and say nothing doing. You can't just abrogate your responsibilities and just pronounce that you're divorced. But when you look at the bride price also, there have been instances where the male or where the husband, right, the estranged husband just returns the bride price and there she is left on the street. How? So are we really putting the customary practice into how it is supposed to be? Is it going? Is it in tandem with the uh, how guys with the spirit of the constitution where we are trying to give a woman her right to life and dignity, because dignity is also very very important, right, for for any society that is in a transitional stage as ours. And like again, if I can just quote a comparative with the mesos again, they've fixed it to 420 rupees. But even amongst our society, even in our society right now, the bride price varies. There's no, if it's symbolic, and what is the whole essence, what I could understand from the books that I've read, from the interactions that I've had, is that because women were also equally contributing to the economy of the family by going to the farmland. So to compensate the father for the loss of a labor, a laborer in the field, that's why the bride price came up. But in today's time, when the bride price is also something that's negotiable, the question that comes to my mind is that when I have a daughter, am I going to negotiate? Now, I'm not saying let's do away with it, but can we find a solution where the woman's dignity is also intact? And if it is symbolic, can we keep it symbolic? And if and and should divorce be so easily possible by just pronouncing or by just returning the bride price? Because there have been instances which has been whereby divorce have been granted simply by the husband, just going and returning the bride price of the lady that he married. So, and again, if I can quote 2018, if I'm not mistaken, of the economic survey, they came out with the pink color, covering because they wanted to promote gender equality. And there was a chapter which was called, there was a concept that was in one of the chapters which was on the meta-son preference. So in today's time also, so the whole idea of meta-son preference was that the birth of a son would determine the size of the family. And I think this is something that most of us could relate to. So if a son was born, first time son was born, jubication. Second time son was born, oh wow, sabashi dedo. Third time a son was born, oh, this woman is good. And it would go on, right? And so maybe the size of the family would stop at the third son. But what if a son was born towards a younger sibling? And I will take my own example because we are three girls and a boy. So I would tell my mom that, Mom, what if it was reversed? What? My brother was the oldest in the family, and then was my younger sister, who would be the second child. That means the chance of me and my elder sister, will our chance to be born, will it be there or not? And she would just smile. But again, what I'm trying to say is that we celebrate the birth of a son good. Um, we also need to celebrate the birth of a daughter. And I suppose this celebration would be on equal footing if we also think about granting her the right to inheritance. Because for a woman, I am told, we're having a casual discussion today with my mother-in-law, and she says that uh, I can't translate that in Vaiphei, but it's like you don't feel stable in your spouse's home or in your conjugal home unless you have given birth to a son. But my question is again, the gender of a child is determined by the genes, the chromosomes of the husband. So why should the woman be made, why should the woman be questioned as to why can't she give birth to a son or a daughter? I mean, if we could choose the gender of a child, of the fetus when the fetus was within us, I don't think any of us would be born here then. You know what I mean, right? So I really feel that it's important. And so three questions that I'll just pose, which I think we can deliberate about, is one, when we talk about custody battles, should we not adopt the best interest of the child? Because if we linger on the customary practices, we linger on the customary rights, then it is going against the principle of the fundamental rights. And if I talk legally, Article 13 clearly says that anything that goes against the principle of fundamental rights is void ab initio. But the only reservation or the only protection we have is because we are in the scheduled states, because we are tribals. But can we not use the status of being a tribal and coming up with something progressive? Because the custody, whenever we talk about custody of the child, it has to be in the best interest of the child. But our customary practice somewhere is not in consonance with the best interest of the child. That's number one that I would want to say. The second, what I want to say is, when we talk about dispute adjudication, we need to be more legally aware. We need to make women a part of the dispute resolution process, because it's only then that justice would be justice in the true sense of the term, because justice should not only be done, but it should also seem to be done. So when I am one of the victims, let's say, of domestic violence, and I'm not a part, or any woman is not a part of the dispute resolution, I don't think that kind of justice can ever be not biased, because many of the decisions that we come across is very, very biased, that is being given to us by our customary structures that we have through the Kingsman Council and so on and so forth. And when also it comes to the inheritance also, I really believe that we need to empower women. We also need to make her feel secure, because that's also very, very essential. And once I believe that once we also extend the right of inheritance, that's also when we will also celebrate the birth of a child in as much as we celebrate the birth of son. So in my humble submission is that it's very essential that we really relook into our customary laws, and we try to navigate our way through our gender perspective, because I am not of the idea that we do away with it, because changing the laws is not going to change our customary practice, because that's a social construct. It's too deeply ingrained. And for us tribals, our customary laws and our customary practices it's not just an identity, but it's a way of life. But we certainly can do better by making it more gender neutral. We certainly can do better by understanding that there are certain rights, that there are certain privileges that we should not deprive any of the tribes, men and women, on the basis of gender. I think on that note, I will want to wind up my time this evening. So I think that's all that I can say for now, for the first time.
Yeah, thank you, Mercy. I think you have set the tone. Tuni kyolim na tamtak gyari lomba. Will you like to take the question answers now itself, or a little later?
I think I'm okay if I can take it now.
Question, Mercy ka Nelsa abu izi ka question answers adong nom kan tu in dong tele mo. Just introduce yourself, unmute. As I introduce yourself, the question answers ka dong lehan joto le nuzun ro sinong present le mo. Adong nom yung ka kule. I think you managed.
Yeah, okay. Kung ang lo mo.
Henry.
Thank you very much, Umar Sima, for the very much progressive voice out here, so to say. Yes. Yeah, very much appreciated what you said, and I think it needs to be put out. That's another thing. I don't know much. Very can le elam tan ti di may len customary law ti hang hak ti elam pang di tang di kahim. Not very sure of all the nitty-gritties, basically how it's done and all that. But the interesting part that you said about the negotiating part, no, where we can negotiate the bridal price and all that. So sometimes, but so you were saying, coming to a conclusion rather, that it could just be made symbolic, that It doesn't have to represent, no, represent us in that sense, but it doesn't have to have AR seal, we use mithun and all that, right? So, so one mithun could have cost just 1 rupee in today's parlance, or it could have just be 10,000 rupees or 1,000 rupees. So in that sense, it's negotiable, right? But if we are to say like make a symbolic thing like the Mizos did, for instance, like I think they just made it 300 rupees or something like constant for all, which I'm not very sure of.
I think 420 rupees.
Oh, 420. So, then we all have to go back and later, not later, but for that to happen, I think we need to really codify it in the sense that at least this has been structured or laid out by I don't know, an authority within us. No, it's all below. I think it pertains or it applies to all the tribes out there in Lanka or Chuchan, per se. That's just yeah. I don't know if you have anything to say to that, but again, just in the sense that to me, what's rather interesting is also the attitude that we have, of these laws, so to say. It's just like if you're not paying attention to in such a way that you don't have a proper indong sa, you're basically violating the rules, the unwritten rules of the community that you're a part of. And in a way, it's not just to me, it's not just women that is affected. A lot of young progressive males are also affected in the sense that you are basically against your own customary laws in such a way that you're not paying attention to it. Is one. Another one is the lackadaisical approach to the milole. Ang may saklaw na ilole nang mangthai mo, mangthai kiti na lang pangka. Ang so kasi tintin. So to a question mong to me, this is just me complimenting whatever you say in the way that say among thai lo din codify the mong lele because codify le ong yung lo bang tim mazik su bang zik committee le we don't have a supreme authority per se, at least state legislature on like to enact all this, no, in the sense that law dana pass na le Manipur assembly ve la kitsoy lut zawle hilo mai tin na mo another. And then and as also that sometimes it also becomes a very dan lui the long bang tai tu lai ko ve tong ki tok ta lo ki tiu de so khang thak ti kan thing ti mo i ngai dan mai le atang zon chu in dong sa be philo aphung ale clan ale in ti upa khuti khati ki ti tang na lai. But the way the world changes, I think that has not caught up to it anymore. Mo, nidang laya ka iye le ka dan TV to be mula na. Tingtang ko kata ka economic culture ini kibang lay low ma kat ihi lay kat that is very uniform in the sense that ko kata kiteng it applies to us all. Hohe dan ichon dan do si kibang tu ichu so I Manipur mai hila kam tang ye vak chengi le idan hak mat hi lo ken tu Mumbai kauma bangkat bol mutalin, sang sa thang bol mutalin. That's not possible anymore. More working to the way so. Tigul sa daka. So, but then how bang tigul sa bol len aum dan so to then the important question would be di dan de imatalo ele itu anama mangthai ki so kaya more will there be a way that we retain our identity without I don't know like always or absolutely conforming to these laws?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think Andrew, what you raised very valid point.
Yeah, I think we can take all the questions together and you can answer it at one go. Question dang again the Omwe. That's one question. Okay, I think.
Yeah, Dr. Mary. It's me, Dr. Swanta. Yeah. Do you mean that we need to modify our culture, or do you mean that we need to modify our traditions, or do you mean that we need to change our culture or traditions?
Okay. In this regard, I should say that as a person in a society, we are from different tribes, but here, every tribe are here. So, according to me, I should say that we are born with identity and we died with identity. But there need to be some changes according to, being a modern world. I hope you get it.
Yeah,
Of
I
course, we
think.
cannot leave behind our identity. That's where we are born for and we die for. But then there should be some need to be changed. We cannot live in the past during those in the pre-colonial period, let's say like during our forefathers' time. Things been changed. Of course, we should follow our culture in some way, which can adjust to the society. But if there need to be change, we should, but not to remove our identity.
Any
I,
any
it
other
was
questions for Madam Mercy?
can I just come in? I think I just want to just add to what Dr. Mary just said up to Dr. Swanta. I think it's not about doing away with our customary laws or customary cultures or tradition because, first of all, if you try to draw a distinction between what is culture and tradition, it's a very thin line. On paper, maybe we write it different nomenclatures, but I believe it means the same thing. And for us tribals, the ethos is very, very important. So what I would suggest is that let's not do away with the practices, but if they're derogatory to women, why can't we do? Something was at one point in time, it was something that was looked upon as an honor of women. And if the courts could do away with something that is derogatory to women at that point in time, why can't we do? Child marriage was something that was very relevant. If we can do away with that, why can't we do away with something which is costing or which is affecting our society in a negative way? So what we need to do is we have our customary laws. No, we can modify them, we can amend them. That's what amendment is all about. Leave the basic structure the way it is, but we can modify them in order to keep up with the changing times. So we don't have to do away with that because doing away with the customary law is not going to be effective until and unless we also bring a change in the customary practice. Irrespective of what laws we have. More like India, we say right to equality, it's a law, it's a fundamental right. But look at our society, are we giving women right to inheritance? We don't give because we are carrying on our customary practice. So for me, I feel practice is what we need to reform more than the law because no matter how many laws we have, if we don't change the practice, which is the mindset also, which starts with the mindset, then things are never really going to change. That's how I look at it.
Yes, Dr. Mercy. Dr. Mary, I really agree with you. But let's say, let's take to the Khasi cultures.
Yeah.
In the Khasi cultures, the women inherited the, properties. So will the men protest?
No, they don't protest, but they're making a lot of change. Like you talk about the Khasi society, it's a matrilineal society. They're in the Nayars in Kerala, right? But again,
Yes.
a very interesting thing, and it would be really wrong to compare them with us because one, we are not a matrilineal society. We are a patriarchal society. So even the nature of our society is so different. So it's never fair to compare ourselves with, totally two opposites. But nonetheless, male don't protest. But again, if you look at the Gao Bura, or if you look at the decision making, it's always with the males again. The women don't really have too much of a say when it comes to decision making. So when we talk about position of women, no, it is not just confined to one society or one state. It's a social construct which is universal. We go to the United States, wahan pe bhi we see, gender disparities are there. So male, maybe they protest, maybe they don't. But again, for them, the rules are very different. See, the youngest child in the family inherits the property in a matrilineal society of the people in Meghalaya. But even among the Mizos, it's a patriarchal society, but it's not the oldest son, it's the youngest son who inherits the property again. You get it? So every tribe has a distinct ethos, milieu to it. So it would not be possible to cherry pick because at this stage in our life we can't cherry pick because we're not starting a new, this is not the genesis of a new tradition. We are just talking in terms of how can we reform what we have. Because picking up something we don't have is going to be very difficult. So why don't we hone on something that we have? And what Henry talked about was the insung. What is that? I mean, can I say about insung dongta? Indongta, sorry. So that is very, very, important because tulayaka, even in law, because courts are overburdened. So we're trying to remove the burden from the courts because they're procedural bound and it's very, very time taking. So now we are pushing really hard for mediation. Now, when we talk about the Kingsman Council, it is through the mediation also. So when we look at the state courts, many of the the modern day, method of dispute resolution, we pick them up from the customary laws as well. We look at the Hindu laws, the Hindu Inheritance Act of 2005, where the Hindu women were, given the right to inheritance of property. Hindu they like, we already knew since the ancient Indian times, women were always treated as doormats. But in 2005, they reformed their laws and they give women the same right as a son to inherit property. If they can do that, why can't we do? Because we are Christians and we believe in, one living God who has preached equality. Jesus Christ never made a distinction between male and female. So why don't we do that? Why can't we take the best practices and put it in our, customary practices, and thereby later on imbibe it in our customary laws? So that's something I think I missed out on pointing out, that modern day state law practices there, we have it in our customary law. So even the kings, the way we have dispute resolution, we can make it more feasible, we can make it more gender neutral. Why is it so difficult to involve a woman in the decision making? That's my question. Why can't we do that? It's very easy to do that. It's much easier said than done. And apart from that, also, I think one point, and it's just going off my head right now, one very valid point which Henry raised also was regarding, so are we to replace the laws? We can't replace the laws because we're going to lose our identity. It's not just an identity, but it's our way of life. We don't need to let go of one to have another. We can have both, yet we can make it, like a harmonious, way. There's always a way that we can work out on that end, I think. There was one more point that came to my mind. It's just slipped off, so I can't recall. I'm sorry.
Maybe you can write about it in your article. Question answers dang omdiem. We are running out of time. Adang te speaker panile na inalayo. Iki holim to angay na puma mazenga. Tuhin khat kagem di khatsu bangham tile. Vaiphei society, it's a very gender neutral society. As you benam tele. Ting tang pa hin chapa to chanu hi ingay khok ma mazenga. Nu hing sok kala chalukim nei. Chapa chau nei kha chanu nei lo te kha chalukim nei zo lo akiti. Chanu chau nei chapa nei zo lo kha banga I apung chang ding nei zo lo ikiti kita. Dia kata, but at the same time, dia ko gender neutral antile. Somewhere it is tilting towards more on the men. But he's when antile chapa te ha go lo di here. So, for example, the issue is not just on inheritance. So, chapa nei lo te, chanu chau nei te bang kha. So, yon customary law interpret da na kha. Insung ga pakiti ye ka so insung ga pa kha asupi chapa nei te kha anei le lam zo si kha aba chak kum jingo. Ji bang kha, I think that's a very almost unchristian, I should say. And at the same time, customary law, even in the United Nations, Supreme Court of India, United Nations, customary law, tribal community or indigenous communities adding a customary law, empirically, practice and no Nuzun Ross ka a connection dio. George, can you find out? And
no, John Ross just wait.
He just left the meeting.
Yes.
So
maybe due to the
connection, no?
Connection, yeah. Yes.
In that case,
should I call her up?
Yeah, just call her up if you can. And on the meanwhile, okay, next speaker here. But on the meanwhile, if any other question and answers to Mercy, you can ask.
I just missed out on talking about one of the customary practice more, which I really am not in favor of. Is I don't know if we have it in the Vaiphei customary law, but I think we do have that. Anung lamsi kitika. I think we have that in our customary practice and law also, that when the when if a woman doesn't have a son born to her and she loses her husband, she's a widow. So the widow doesn't have a son. She is not even entitled to follow
Nuzun Ross is here, okay?
or the, she is not even entitled to follow out her husband's, coffin from the main door, but she needs to go from the back door, and she needs to drop by her maternal parents.
No, I think this is in Vaiphei's tradition, not in Vaiphei.
Yes, so we don't have it in Vaiphei.
No, we don't have it in Vaiphei. That's in Vaiphei's tradition.
Yeah, so I was just talking, these, and I think that's really unfair, because when we talk about customary laws also, somewhere that comparison always comes in. So I'm glad that we don't have this in the Vaipheis. I think it's brilliant that we don't have it.
So without much ado, to Inuzwanros with ITU, she's worked with the State Commission, Manipur, and she has lots of experience about what Vaiphei women face in reality. So without much ado, I would like to give time to her. 15 minutes more. 15 minutes. So the time is all yours.
Okay, kasi pake hunde ang sota ken le som se ben in gen yung gong katin. Kipa ko ma marsi tungale kipa ko kagena tampi taka mau illegal rights or tampi tage get beka, but I think that that is not enough. I think we still have to hear from you more. Hilale ama sa pene ken kageno so Vaiphei de yeta kay me baka issues or we jump evolving now. I think the first step that we have to do is that I don't know whether you realize that we don't have a registered body for women under the umbrella of VPC till now. Small tribes like Maring, Ailo, Le Hoiputi, or Ying in Leamana, Lengo Kineo, Vaiphei hin. Nume registered body association or either association or organization katleni nailo huti he hema support there in kauta. Some 6-7 years back, I took the initiative, and then ken kagin kata na tu amao I approach yeta ka khatsatong he president ka approach ka wala ka aman application hung tipo na te hilale kagele hile this is not bakat. This is not the right approach, katikit as it. So why do I have to, give an application? Amao awareness sa kipata kaye ka. Ong he to nga he mo no may poy mo dan ka. Ye kan le ayat sak to bang he matila. No may ingay poy mo lo dan ka ye kan le kilang payata to. Di kayin din Vaiphei no may de ading hiting hitam. Pita ko ma we have not even taken one small step. This is the first step mo kipago umhi. Lele we still have a very, very long way to go. Hindi amas sa penin registered body hiding hi ngay tumas sa positivin. Ye ba na dun adang siding tam pita ka uma. Property rights sitale, child rights sitale, mo domestic violence sitale. Ye ba na dun divorce sitale. Ay harassment, molestation, rape, tiho hi. Aleng hin katay dandanin ken le customary law ho hi kasima. Ay hile edition hi atum uma. Latest edition hin neokat atum dewa. Ye masangate ka atum dewa. Ay ahoy dani akibang po atum ahoy dani appoint so hi atum uma. Ye tun banghem. Overall, kasi mahin ke etahin kay conclusion si hile Vaiphei numete we don't have any values in our society. Dana marsi in child interest sa tipen kapag correct numa amande alasim lo may te sapang hi anu to akinola hile ahilole apana behem anu to kisyan na ho nile. At the age of 4, hong kite to a latest edition na hin, kumli hi apate na kilagding till the age of 4, hit anun holding iti. But upon asas provide volunteer, hilale anu hi identify kibong ngay talo, acknowledge kibong ngay talo hi. Till those hin asapang tutu importance kipeyen ko talale nupen hi bang matahin importance kipe po. Yun rape hitale bang hitalale ma chonda na customary law voktugli ay lo seal salam ti ho chu uma pilale dan again golden codified law akan igulakan still bang value ko ngai hem ti hoile ngai to ngaya dana discuss la bolo tulaya siel ju ahi hen tulay bakata areda jun maybe 80 to 90,000 hi mai the ju atam te na ju ai le siel li ju bangza da idin ye jun anu mei nu ju athudanin aposalin nol tale siel khat petale 80,000 de pie ju ki wang thina idin ma tu hi ju nu mei interest ki pau hin din nu mei ya din kha ngai hin ye ba na jun elimani ti hole a umpu mo ye ba na jun bang hem nu mei anu mei nu ju thudanin siel ju ti khali le ki na lai ikasam hi ale khabu in ki si yeng le ye go le ile ti ki del po aki ho thei dan abe ta te a in sung dong ta te ho ki ho thei dan sa na kana uma ano pa hile maybe below this also more agree they can agreed upon you khahin din no may future is very unsure in their hands as if the written law om lo zi ka khan mo in sung dong ta te ki ho thei dan da na khan no may faith kha ki ngai yeng he ye chun ye ba na chun no may chu athudanin ko salin anolahem rape abolahem any crime hitale no may chu anu le pa thita hen lang ta lo hi hen lang a in sung dong ta te le puti lom lama thu hele hi lo thu gen the le hi lo mo thu vai the le hi lo hi kitale anu may nu wang si di ki de ngai chu tu lai ta kin le ken ke sat ka ne ya ye chun bang hem ti le aposal hin no may nu hi lim sak lo to be hi le te en kol nai ti the na dinga sum ne ta bi hi ti hi in bahara anu se yang asate le ama king lam le khatim dinga te ye ba na chun ai le ki sending no may nu kan nol dinga ti le apalin ka le dementia ne ain sung dong ta te le bang magen the le hi lo mo ye no fit vel ka bang ti igel pe ka hi ha ka hak sai te e customary lo ba decide dinga sum Adekto Amahe, she had undergone lots of torture and mental harassment. So hintin, tigol ho he bang he one pill fit bang ba kiti tigol de udan kamo ka atam su ka dian ti ying tapo generalize
fit all
one ti de udan kan generalize takahi ayahi customary law hi ki bol hintin sensitive law mo azole hintin ni life complicacy tam pi azol complexity tam pi ta ho hi bang tin is solve du hem ti hile ngai do ngai hile le to sot vai nung lampek le hintin ka bang khat tu hi no mei ken tu lai ta ka dia nom su Vaiphei society no may hin identity kinay po iti sa no ma. Bangzi kem tiledana kagyan gola under the umbrella of BPC bang ma registered body kinay po. As all any organization like the Light Student Body hitale frontline bangkat any organization BPC hitale ay lole YBA hitale. No may pantina ho tu member hong ilene apan thina apoi thina penso arts and culture treasurer finance ti ho he no may president kiti khanai lo no may general secretary kiti khanai lo mo pakhat be ba me yesule keu impal ten keu nunga la ya uvei avei kitin din tu hi bangkata MPSC utekta zi huma ma ko president kalama ngoi kha the first and the last hintin no may te hi ye ho dana right tam pita igen te ho pa yo ka ihung mu the na dingo ni tu e mau hi sensitize ki bol ko to ngai mo 99% of the Vaiphei women we are in comfort zone ki pat ki bol to no nai po mo I think I have approached so many of them educated ones but they don't want to utter one single word in support bang mata support na le again no but dik amaw life comfortable le hi ka ha kay tu ni ay lo le namu ho no me hum de ho no le la life comfortable mai thi ki ya le comfortable le itu ile le e ya ha kung na burden ka kinezi ka kahimo as if it can happen to anybody, if not to you, maybe to your daughters or maybe to your distant granddaughter. You never know mo. Di ka hintin amat sa penin iputin mo hito kadoy to registered body ka BPC no iyo mo hepoy mo mama yung ezekcho ibang panalayo by pitehe pati ni nebeng mama he dong mata incident palo kuti no may chunga mo di ho ito kanay ko hilele tung posing hitiu titi na umpu di ho we should be ready for that sa devang to kito ka commission ako umlain ami to gen datang katin pangal deto kiteng he aposalhin ako akyang hi a headbot piga si the hospital in uma ye kan atanaw dehin ke hi abe ako lahin ang holo direct ka kan ama ka number ni lo si ko kan infala zillai member ti ho YBM member ti ho kale approachable ka number hong piwo but when it came to getting yourself involved they all ran away Tukian kati ito, humon lilungin ba ti hitiwon kati BPC member de kata kakawahile. Communal hikana. Humon lawaw tu. Kangen tanga tumbe lilong bang kata police station na kati bang maatipo. Ti kan kangenin kaboy pia. Tigol deuda na kan communal hiding bang kilaw na lai. I-approach na di kayo labahina communal hidihem mo. Yun, natin kala i-interest no may interest kung sinapodle hello incident pat pod yung alip nobody wants to jump in and get involved di kayo to apply dyan hintin no may te ipan homo hi apoy mo mamaye nga no may te hi hoy tagsa neo kat burden ne te adang tele hoy tagsa holim pia we have to join force ito ka ba genoma Yeba na tun adang hi gending to tama hilale village authority hoyeng ale no may hoy ki include na ilo he we don't have a say in society we are just like machines para ko salte ading he sa inilale itahilo mo yeto bang matatun kit nilo yeta kamun khataka simdig de kin no may hi posal nilale ap at hiya aposalin avui masang se a insung mi tak epui ekiti ito nalo mo ni ka hintin tampi tak i-bonding mo manilali amat sa pena kagyan no to registered body kat na hitiun azo pali patle member hole na hitiun then I think we can proceed from there onward mo ahun le tom tayo iting to point by point na kabagyan hi iting tun ko hun kita yan lang question ay dong no mom lela kat leni tu ay dong tin na ilo adang tu Mary by day to kesone Sakipagi.
Mary na hong lazing so pinta to no te gela to question answer la committee.
Okay, can you all hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for this opportunity, and I think this is the first time I'm here in this Vaiphei Scholar Research Forum. If I'm not mistaken. And regarding this our topic before. I was not aware of that in a specific way it should be for women's concern aspect, but I thought it's in general. So through our meeting, I'll try to highlight, on the basis of women. And as we said that, I'm very proud to belong to this my own tribe. We belong to Vaiphei, and as we know, if a deer gives birth, then it is the same deer. It is not a tiger, right? So the same way, we cannot, defunct or we cannot remove away our culture. That's where our identity. As I said before, that's where we are born of, and we have to die with our identity. But sometimes with modernity and education, and according to the location and the place where, in our life, we need to change something. So for that, first, I would like to discuss some points. I have some few points. First, let's talk about on marriage. One of the practice that we followed since our forefather has been the Nenu practice, Nenu Nepa practice. And I should say that even these days, we did follow somehow, though it is not common much. in this practice that, as we all know, the importance of being the relationship between the maternal side and, the paternal side, both in both ways. In that way, culturally and in building up a relationship, that's fine. But, we all are educated out here, and there'll be a lot of people, who hasn't joined the group. But, in all way, we are very educated, all of us. But isn't that the right way to follow or to still practice this Neinu Neipa, relationship in marriage, in our culture, in the Vaiphei society? And this is not only for the Vaiphei society, even in other like the Cookies tribe also, it's been followed. Seeing to that, they may say that it built a good relationship between the maternal and the paternal. But as I said just before, they are educated. It is not the right thing for, biologically, we see that if the gene is the same, the offspring is the one who suffers mentally, or there is a defect, or even medical problems. That's what I see here, in the family that I enter. Their practices have been, like there are 2, 3 practices which I have seen. And most of them with heart cases, born with heart cases. And unluckily, one died off. So that's I see that, we should try to acknowledge the importance of education, and those who do not know with their mentality or with all those a bit orthodox and being more fanatical, we should, educate them. The importance of education, and biologically in science, that's we all know that we should, make them known that once a child is born, of course, the future of that child, though it's been still unseen, it's a long way. As a mother, we do not allow a child to suffer. This is also one of the duty that as a women we need to voice our, rights, or what do we say, in different ways to build this marriage as not in a, what is it, mental aspect, but in a developed, or what is a modernized way. And the other thing which, in a culture that we should change, maybe a lot of us out here may not agree, but according to my perspective, the so-called the title, or say the word that's been given to those the new bride in a society in the Vaiphei culture, that is called Mo. The word Mo being used by we the Vaipheis as well as like in Jo, hardly with any other tribes. But when we say that Mo, what they refer to is that it gives a good, dignified, a remarkable name or a call for that. But I should say that when the word, the dignified, or say, not in a dignified way, but the exact word of Mo refers to someone who's from outside. So the love that we're going to receive, they said Mo is nobody called, Mo in other society. We are the only, it's so precious. It is one of the dignified which nobody can have it. That's true. But then in the other side, in the opposite, it also refers to someone who's from outside. So the love that an outsider gets, and from a person or daughters from inside, there is unequality. That I should say that. So instead of using the word Mo, like we could rather use it as a system, the same way as other tribes use it. I'm not the one who's gonna change it, but it is my, what to say, a suggestion, in that way.
Actually, Mary, let me just interrupt you. Regarding the Mo thing, I myself feels like that. So, I don't call my brother's wife Mo. I call her by her name.
That's true. That's what I wanted. In a culture, in the Vaiphei society, all women, bride, be called as in the same name, or if it is younger or elder, according to that, we can refer to as sister, or younger or whatever, not as the title of the word. Well, this would be changed.
I think like changing the custom, it will take a long time, but I think the change has to come from you, from us. So we have to start doing it first. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And the next point,
okay.
Tell me,
sister. Okay, please go on.
Okay. The next point which I would like to talk about at this meeting is that about the part of a child. In a different aspect, unlike what we heard just before, childbirth, as we follow since our forefathers, that our grandmothers and some of our parents still, who were quite with that mentality of old age, had a lot of to do's and not to do. And during the time of the pregnancy of the women, they should not go to their maternal house, the wife's family, and sleep for a day or for a night or for 2 nights, because changing of the bed is ill health for the birth of the child. Maybe the child can be born as a cat, or it can be born as defect or with handicap, whatever. And they also said that cutting off a hair while being pregnancy, it leads to something or some unexpected after the birth of a child. And also they said that during winter, like the fireborn, if of course we feel cold, even women feel cold, it's not only men. So in that fireborn, if we happen to be there and saw portion of waves, so that we could get the heat. So then when the child is born later on, it's stuck to the womb, or there are many kind of things been there. But I
It has
disagree.
to be, I think that has to be proven scientifically.
No, I don't think that it proves scientifically, according to me. The fact is that, of course, I belong to the tribe of Vaiphei, and I follow culture too, but there's needs something to be changed, even in the mentality. During the pregnancy of my first kid, there's a lot of things being said, this and that, this and that. Of course, I'm not a rebel person, but I did what they did not expect. I had a long hair, I cut it short to see that whether I should prove it or not. I cut it. And they said not to change it. A bed to go to maternal, family and stay there for a night. I stayed there for 2 nights. And then whatever our customary laws suggested, I didn't follow. But nothing happened. I did cut twice. Of course, I have 3 children. For the first two, I did it. Nothing happened. So this kind of mentality does not relate with what is inside our womb. Because the thing that is inside our womb, whether the baby to be born should be mentally sound or physically right, depends on the medication that we eat and look after. It is scientifically, not about the scientific, thoughts of our olden days, those mentality of our grandparents or generation. That's what I stood for. And then in the society also, we said that when boys are born, that of course we belong to paternal patrilineal. That's right. But when girls are born, seems like we lost our generation, or we lost our genealogy or identity, and there's a lot of differentiation identity between being biased between man being born child of a boy and a born child of a girl. That's a fact till today. But I should say that once again, we all are educated out here. We know what is science. We know what is history. We know what is political science. Am I right? So a child is born not because of the desire or our wish that a boy should born or a girl should born. It depends on the chromosome, X and Y. We all know that. So if a boy is born, who is it? And if a girl is born, who's right and who's false? It depends on scientific knowledge, not on whether we wanted it or not. So they should know that. The role played by the man and the role played by the women in that particular case, on that aspect of a part of a child. So this should also be removed. And regarding this, the bridal cover price, in a custom that we said that we are one tribe, that's true. But of course, in a tribe, we divided into different clans. But however, what I should think for is that I want some kind of, reformation, is that in the price of the bride, let there be equality in all the bride price. Because I got married to a Kaute family, and in the Kaute, we belong to the sub-clan of Hao. And we are like 15 Mituns. And say for the Swantax family clan, there are, if I'm not mistaken, 10. And for the Nasil, there are 5 Mituns. Why is there a differentiation when we stood for
And
as one tribe?
let me interrupt you. Regarding the Mithun also, like the Mithun doesn't have a fixed price.
Yes.
As I said earlier, it depends on the negotiators. The intermediate, the people who are, intermediating. So it depends, like your 1 million will be like maybe 1,000 rupees or maybe 2,000 rupees according amount ki ho da na kahi mo. Ye ho chung tang hi ken ka ngai ka gel da na so. I customary law hi very archaic data. Of course, they have put some efforts. Now, to amend a ball more. Nidang nai tang to hit to now hoi de wata. So nidang to no may or two. Mizoten legeno a pui paten legeno. No may die to a city attending a kitty to. Yegola, we are just like fences. More, you cut offenses or a lady away hinting. You can ye didn't want sang to do to eat in one to tell a padeva hit again. 21st century to Kituka ding to very archaic in a lie. You can hint in Bangtigola hin as they do. We are living in a modern world where money is everything. It is also. No make at a honky bank at a hile, Dana, again, Golaka. If price bright money pen is to okay. Bright money related to discuss a sunset here. I think in Yanling, bright money led to his own the descent of whom in marriage more. Descent of whom part here, the differences of whom part the kitchen now, where the children of whom what will be the plight of the woman in future? He came up concern a link then here more. Ye tokito kahi ibang customary law we need to amend so that it can suit the present day mo. Customary law piti yung bang customary law it will become law in itself, but it won't be. I mean, people will not go for this. Customary law preferable technology bang it is quick. Mo fast ito. Hilale bakat long run adding no may adding a benefit low the law hindi ka customary law is a law who maintain ni educate whom he deal de wa hili to bakat legal bakat na may family court na may hung teach ang
what madam
nang lagyan gola the customary law to aim identity lati kala mole the identity he intact he as a society we need to amend the law.
Yeah, what Madam Junros has said is right. I agree with that. But I'm talking the aspect of equality in the price of the bride. And that one mitun, not necessarily in these days, modern days, that we should give it in practical as a mitun. Of course, one mitun can cost even 50 rupees also, or can also be 1 paisa. Doesn't matter. But I'm referring to the numbers of as written in our own traditional law, like one has 15 and one has 10 and one has 5. But if we all are just one tribe, unity, equality,
uniform bangka kaunti, uniformity
can be changed. And next is regarding our modern days youth, even that includes ourselves too. Say, as I say, we belong to one identity and we are born with identity. But these days, youth, they do not know who they are, where they come from, or their identity. Just because they're wearing Western dresses or American dresses, or let's say we have Manghomas also, that just because, following all those copycat of the Korean style doesn't mean that, we are Korean or we are, Americans or been living in Delhi for throughout the life, like Miss Limbo. It doesn't mean that, we are Delhiites. Still, we are somewhere else. Am I right? See, what I'm trying to say again in this point is that when we ask most of the students also, where do you come from? Of course, we may live in Chursanpur, in the case of me. But they have their origin. Maybe some decades back, Chursanpur, there was nothing. We all shifted from Burma, from the Chin Hills. We are migratory. But the same way, before we lived in Chursanpur, we were somehow from Thanlon, from Suknu, Chandel, somewhere in the hilly area. But we don't know our origin. Of course, I'm born and brought up in Chursanpur. However, if somebody asks me, where is your native place? I'm very proud to say that I am from Sugunu. I was not born there, but that's where my grandparents lived during those days. Only seldom, once or twice in a year, we used to go for some celebration. But then I'm proud that. And even these days, even we have to maintain, if we have to maintain our identity, that the youth even do not know anymore the name of even their grandparents. They know, of course, their father's mother's name, but they do not know even their grandparents. Who is the father or mother of his or her grandfather? Still, we should know our genealogy. By knowing our genealogy doesn't mean that we should not, dress with those Western dress or speak in English or whatever. That is our identity. That should be built up. If not, our generation is losing who they are. They do not know identity anymore. This is also important. And another thing is about inheritance. Can there be equality in inheritance? That's what I would like to ask this. We have good gentlemen out here.
amata mo bakit customary law ki bola ka inheritance tung ta ka gidikana ka apa tate ago ki bang kita apa na ho ding mo ti ho ka umay to but in the latest this thing addition like they have not included that again. And another thing, ye ba na tu pakat tu kanuan by the then they have amended the law, their customary laws, and they have they said that if a person has only one daughter, then she can inherit the father's the thing property mo, di ka ama emen bolo mo. Kaya le ye bol hin pakasa, and at the same time no may po property sharing ki bang trading in the yung kasay thinking.
Yeah. That is what I saw before.
To like for to neo kadwang to bang tiyan min bang except lo mai te hilele atapa upapenin tampen tanti ho hile hi ete le tapa upapeni na tam zo he nu le pa enta lo wai chumo ai le lo ni de bang hem atutan na di chumo a judgment is be hile bang hem mo ti ho hile ni pa di detail de hin ki yen te le to do.
Yeah, regarding this inheritance, like in a society, whether it is movable or immovable, there should be equal share between men and women among the children. I should say that. Because after all, even women has two eyes. Even men also has two eyes. Not that we are born out of some animals. Can men live without women? That's absolutely no. Am I right? So the importance of women, without women, man can't live in a society. So why don't there should be equality? We are not born from some woods or some animals, isn't it?
You like the point of you like the point.
Ross, let Mary finish her presentation.
Okay. Because I thought like I just want to make it clear. Okay.
Yeah. So I hope that is clear. And for the last point, I want to talk on this. We have this the corpse price. When a person died in a customary law, in the Vaiphei society, or even others, we have this luman. Am I right?
Yes.
But in a society, women, girls do not have luman. That which we give to our maternal parents as a kind of their identity. But when we see that, if we can talk about the neighborhood and the neighbor relationship, that is the link between, even in the future generation, the building of relationship between the maternal side and the paternal side. And if that has to be, acceptable in this regard, concerning with lumen, why the Vaiphei women do not have lumen? Is it that the efforts and the contribution that a woman has in a family or link with the maternity side or mother side, is it that we are some kind of being neglected? In the Kukui society, even a woman has a lumen, but why not in the Vaiphei? Should we not be dignified? Because the value that giving birth and looking after and giving the generation offspring, building a genealogy for the family is much equal to the role played by a man. I should talk, that's what do you think about it? It needs to be changed. And for the last, as Madame June Ross has said, there's the Vaiphei Women Commission. We should have one as a recognized body. I should say that. It's important to voice the importance of women. Not that man would not support it. Of course, let's have first this Vaiphei Women Commission. Then automatically, these days, it's a modern world. Man will just follow it. Will just support it. I know that, 100%. They cannot live without women. Am I right? So we should have this Vaiphei Women Commission. That's true. That's the most important thing, in this meeting with what Madam Junro said. I agree a lot. Yeah, that's for all.
Kipako Mama, very interesting insight. I would like to give a few observations before I open for question and answers round. Again, gola Vaiphei society patinin Vaiphei na may simi kipakpi ibo no may ile iki otchak pi ka aji subay na amtile pakat na nam khati he panina Vaiphei te kilong sietan. Kilong sietan dan so ipu te tanu kai zi kilang zieng ini tapa kai posal kilang zieng ne inu nei pa cross cousin Mary Tuma to Dr. Mary again gola ha which is not scientifically very healthy again. Mama zieng aji subena tele iki kakla sang si genetical deformities uma aji kachu akol te zo kin bon 7 generation ki ka dinga tiwo ajuti le lam ka ie pe la mau zo ki eu sanga akho ka ha zo na le ji te dio ti sang to le ki ngai ko le se ka pakat nan paninan again khat kit chu mo khat ti mo kha Adikledika, it's a very debatable process. Why pay ten and issue pitezi humo kiti dang ten kiti po. Zihi mo iti law zika u iti zika hi isu insung mi gula tak tak. Adim ti I think I would like to ask another one question. Adik to benam tili kay bang kay si posal na inay lo kay le posal ba na ilang kay insung lut na ten mo iti zikon mi chuom kay di mo iti law le chun le mi chuom sa kahin. Because
I think you should try that.
because kanula ka pa ka pasal nula pa ka kay pian nula pa so ka equate good dito here lele it's the very fact that ama ka equate good ka kay no pian nula pa ka kasumang yang diti kala I think it's very unfair because anyway that's my take ये तो mo iti ka ये तो साथ ले sister in law kiti waktu le bhabi kiti zi I think zi Vaiphei te nam house na hi paninan pathum na hi Vaiphei te hin chanu kol le vai te ho ve la ie te le chanu pieng lo zia ka chanu pieng tam zia ka chanu te tha ti hoi la nei po female infanticide zi i nam house na kita hi and tu in ke family dik dik gen lang ka pa khan paula li ka unaw la ko ka so pi ke sa ko pa zama ma hi mitam takin kanaw pa di ang gincha wala la mahi ka ino ka usin puno da una pagye the naw palina he kay pasagina ka he ama pieng zo nong han kapa han tanwa chapa apieng tam zo sa pi han le tanwa dai mama zenga ye ka to tanu kha aniaw lam ngon tanu ngon pieng ka hiwo and very much welcome and then ka sopi ka usangin le tanu do izia ka after a lot of gap aji to benam tinira bangzia ka dim abul ti hakel le ka tiempo ka tiempo na na da cha pa panile hun ta ka ti le lam ka e Vaiphei traditional ethos hi chalukim ne kiti hi alkin ni lul ma ma zinga cha pa chau ne khale nu le pa dinga ting zo lo chanu chau ne khale ting zo lo chalukim ne kiti hi alkin ai tu ma ma nu le pa dinga chalukim ne kiti hi gender balance gender bang adinga society adinga na sa ta to in any society sexual violence if you see there the gender balance ka umatu in any society in gender balance relatively akimentien ma mazing hi so chalukim na hi traditionally lang ai koi mo kataya but at the same time nuzun rong sin again ka dikasama mazing naga mothers association and zomi mothers association in Vaiphei Mother Association ay lo le Vaiphei Women Association di bang ito BPC no hembang patin cho tinay tela pa mama di ang gen so di benam tile tu tan cho ibang pao I think it's a stroke of luck zilai president le kala ika deli ka ujik lai di ko but then when it came zilai zanan kala pang hama benam tile zi kagyan no katsu I think lots of tu copy in more 21st century here imak pateo hi Vaiphei cho le hello talpa te tiu mai te cho le hello sap te le nei te ho polvom te le nei te ho negrovom te le nei te ho it's a choice I think so eu to jat te gola khap panchayat no ya spouse bang life partner dikha society in edit te pu mo freedom to choose our own life partner nei khati ji ko kha problem le nei the as a problem le in a lot in a lot in a the two country nei po that should by God's grace but then later on also we can have the lakahin a society lakahin a no mai te ading again di ku pakat na the society registration the kangai kok ma I think we should talk about how to take this forward to have a registered body because not only in Manipur but also all India level this to pakata here as a panina khat again di khatu pai kasakma majing to and this is very pertinent is society tu bang chanu khatin aloremo khatin chapane talo ama go loading inheritance law ti hoile nasudaka ikyo limdingu phagasaji to benam tile inheritance law kiti it's a very controversial tam zo hin nu le paten go nei lo chu kachati ading ba go pi nga hem ile ngai thiu le go kiti chu lo in ikakale pu nu le paten ei nu chetok le avanu a bible lu iti na san hokale nu le pate go hi thoa ye ka chu ji hoile na sa ka codification hi hoi tak chai ki bolu iki het kem the di na dingo so that in sung dong tate ading ale line ka ki hul ma ji to ne tan I sum up today's presentation question answer si mitam takin chat box ke tele question tampi uma ji speaker te ading ke nong sin do peking ka tin pakatahi to Suantag Vaiphei Luzon and Dr. Mary, do you think that the perceptions and thought process among the youngsters are influencing by a custom and culture practice? If so, what should be done? A question pakar katin kasim dia melo lebuan kasim komen longan saryang dia mo.
Katin ang sima.
Dito pakata here. Then and could you also explain us what is called culture and what is not? Also, mahin question hi. Is that the environment factor that influences our thought process of the culture and tradition? Kindly clarify. Dr. Marin,
Kay muda na ibang situ isa te ho situ custom ho influenceable tadiin kahepoy. Custom ho gi adik takabang situ ang satna ho vele hung tu hi la pehem patina beiton na ang tu pate le custom ho he we resort to it. Other than that, like we are oblivious of our customs. Also, like culture he le situ culture tu banghem tile ichipi ho he culture ho he tilibol as a society as a community. Til e man midang in aso iting lo and ito iting ho culture kiti he. I just want to add that, like I'm very proud of our culture, but after converting to Christianity, we have left most of our cultures. Ye kahin din kema ngai dana mi tang king kalagyan na tampi takin muntam takin culture hi sugrich kit ngai hi whatever we had left, lost. We have to revive it again. Culture mi identity culture custom identity culture richer mean Asia kin kamu tunle foreign countries le Indian countries le Indian culture is very rich. Ye kamizo sin even tourists ole hungno mo culture ho hi mo to adding a Vaiphei culture he can kadoi goal tung kasapo rich kasadopo. So I think we have to make an effort to make it rich. For example, like if we are asked about our recipes, ani ho dante ho bakati din sizo tangal me po le kadin sinongal yet dangyan yung no di ho yung sile a recipe ki tut le ki lo ma. Yeah, a traditional cloth ho itale kildang dang pita ilatay san inu siyo tam pita ko mai ho hi patien pu to bang ma akip kalna dingin ka ging sa pu ye kan culture ho hi is rich kit hi pagasai and hutile kang dong deo ikang thak deo ho hin ho hi amao le invite ki bol hi din tun nam lam ti ho yin le tu hin ne kha kha dong ki pu be ye chun function ha ho ma hi le mi ken kha kha ki lo ye ki padahan เนี่ยค่ะหุ่นที่เฮอะฮียังอ่ะจูมิตินหินอีเฮปอยมั้งฮีดิตุกตาเต้บางจู foreigner ที่ว่า foreignerเต้ฮอบางจูและ traditional flow ตัวฮอบางที่ว่าพวกดอลเอียดิ้งอ่ะจูหอยมาเลยยี่ละมาดิ้งคนjust the bare minimum ที่เขาหินตินไอ้เนี่ยละลามด้านอยู่ตัวอย่างเงี้ยตั้งอ่ะอามันเฮลล์ที่เขาหินตินมิตินหินอีเฮปอยมั้ง culture ฮีbecause it is our identity, is the culture is rich in poimoy, contact the whole influence about the poimoy people again. Noma, nebanatun, environment factor, himama yung thought process of the influence about it to like the case of panghoy, the social media, tampida koma, ko kahem tiyeng le kihet alo tamzo isa te Vaiphei kahiti su kihe ham adang zo si ha hello hi jise kahi I culture hi sukri ki poi mo ma mai hi environment ni ema in ikisi mangaya ye chun environment hi isa te hi o poi mo a ye chun social le to invasion of other cultures se tamma ma in society hi bangti word of evolve hi din tile ema culture ka rich na hi a rich lo hi le culture tang in bit in one del dinga hi tile ka ba yan no ki pake
Dr. Mary, no answer.
Before that, both Dr. Mary and Nuzun, how can we enrich our culture among the youngsters? Can you kindly?
I think George, let Mary answer that first question, and then we come to the next. I think that's the second part of the question.
Yeah, I don't know which is the first part and the second part because I couldn't see the question. I'm not into as you know in the beginning. So let me talk about the influence of the youth. That these days the youngsters are not aware of our culture, their identity. Of course, that's very true. I say that in order to, as Madame June Ross has said, to enrich them, first our culture should begin from home. Just because being educated, our children, when they were in 2 or 3 years old, instead of speaking in English, we started to speak to them in, I mean to say, instead of speaking in Vaiphei, we started speaking English. If we live in Delhi or some other places out of the state, instead of using our own Vaiphei language, we start using Hindi, communicate in Hindi or in English with our kids. Then how will our kids know how to learn a Vaiphei language? That's not the fault of the kids in that way. That's the parents. Let's first use our own language, teach them, the basic language and how to eat food, and let them learn how to eat our own tribal dishes. After all, English, once they are in school, of course, throughout their whole life they will speak it. No need to teach them as soon as they are born. That's my point. So it begins from home. Culture begins from home. And as in a different way, culture is the day-to-day life. We follow every day what we eat, the clothes that we wear, the language that we use, the people whom we met. All these are part of the culture. But it depends on how we use it. I think that's all.
Then the second question which George was asking, and also to him, Vaiphei TV ko hai itam thim ten tawo ibul tilaka ki introduce au sawi tu introduce na pole le gigante tu gigante chu ahoi thei chu Vaiphei Women Society Association hi akin theila ma VPC no ya din do dinga pha ahi azon nunga chu lien nu sa son takin hun hung chezel le pal topek ding ihina dung zui in Vaiphei Women Society or Association hi nam levela adingin pasak kasahi by Vaiphei speech Vaiphei speech peting a pai sako azo mintang sun takina giani Dr. Mary presentation chu ta kasama mai hoi kasama mai ahin mau ti min sanding ti bang ken chu pha kasapoi unique mama min ine u ahe katak cha zui zong dinga ka doidan ahi khang kho inei u kham thak ten vel et kit in kisuk det the hi poi mo kasai adang dok nop dang inei we tu chu
can let a Hong Kong that.
Yeah, the William boy.
Okay.
This one, the feedback form. I
Oh,
think you might be.
yeah. Speaker tu hi presentation ni lung lun ma majing idi dano yang bulti laka pasom bel iyo iki patiki patu de tu mi som tum lami pau. Feedback form di taka kha Dr. George so take nong share pen hi. Please fill up the feedback form ma. Ele certificate le tung pidi hi azi tu benam tile gol holin na hi VRF in akiboli pala sakwem ido idanu hem. Ido idana yule bangul gol lami le bol dum ki hole ki pa ki sa tu benam tile Vaiphei Research Forum hi society chung chang tu igen no kha kyo limna kula sama ma jenga til ka tungyan leng ke hi illama ki salien lo ka hi ka khu ki patna chu mai te hi la le silong lam gam dang lam piang ka hi la le ka pa kanu le ka pan in sunga chu Vaiphei pa wala ma chu lo le kol pa le sa pa ti strict takin ila zui sak dia kin tu ni in delin kham sem leng le Vaiphei pau no kieng in ipule pa pau ni ki ho te wo pule pa pau ki ho te na chi ngai lai ki ngai na chu mo ji kan le khong gen ta hi kien kores nu le pa ting ten ita te ading ni pau in ki ho te chet in Vice President pan le question khat ane ya this time PTU
Sorry, a question too, kung type custom, I know the law to practice kali achum in again or achum male law le in you practice lo achum lo he ma jego dana chu PC hin le dana sim thowa jete kha mang ye po ba puti chwe le Vaiphei women commission jule sim le hin le izui ye lo le chu achum ye lo ding he ale tu dan sim zui ding ti le hin international law ai lo le national law ai lo le tribal law lo bangul law chu sim hin lang hin le zui thei diemo zeban le Vaiphei no mai te chu bangol chu sim le alung kim diemo ma chu ka question e
Kan kan saruti itu
wan saro
lo sim ding kiti po mo no me te dana I customary law ho hi no me ya ding hi women friendly hi pu no me ya ding hi patum na hi ombe po ye je ka emen bolding ti thu hi ni Indian law balang ding tina le pu e ya ding customary law le to di ema to present baka situation to kito ka hi emen bolding na lampi ki hol zoi to thinking Indian le hin
Women empowerment na.
Women empowerment beblelo identity ka dinay na dinga ka ajeng chu customary law ho hi idan bu ho hi isima hile akimang lo chen chu e poi ajeng chu or che ge lo te hon athuda nin no mei chung changin atat sol te ai lo len no mei that te ai lo len no mei nol te ti hovel ai lo le aki zol gai sak ti hovel ho bang hi chu aku hi thawa hi ye kha Kota wati sama ka abayla maka customary law hi resort ki bol sa kay tatam zo hin maka strike hin hilale yilay ta kahi hong ki bol pa le bay hong ki hom pa le no may no ading ibang maungay sekta law salamat sa to atang tin magyan may ka specific de gilo le salamat sa to sil bangga ni magpi ko ngaya ti hovel be kahi ay le ye sil pi teo ka bang aman bangga ta kisimehen sil to fix taka aman ye za ta idile ki ti po ki ho ki da na kha mission hata ding a sil man sa so ma lang hata ding a so ma adik takin singe sinko in sinyeng ta lehin le ti tum sel li hem akidik dan takin ki pe yeng le no me hata ding a chu pe hem aposali na no nunga chu akiba zo na ding hem ai lo le atul nunga asuk tul nunga anol chu no me nu ading a chu a mental harassment ho to aza na to ye ho zo si to akiba ki na ding hem ti ho vel khai to til dan tu ma ni kain tin lo tin ding ti ei pui ting ding to I lo te ho hi emen bola a hi thele aksak be a hem a ding to generalize it lo I lo hi til tam tak ba ka problem hi chum hi din ni ho chunga a ho lo tam pi ta umin tin ni ho to te kale ko sak ti hi den ti ta deuda na kha pan hung ki la hi commission le ipo women commission le ipo registered body ti mai hiti Vaiphei Mothers Association ti hem bangkat VPC noya azik tu VPC no izilai oma YBA oma Bible Society oma adang dang literature azole arts and pangakiti art pangakiti ta ti kale la sa team ti artist association ti hole oma lele no me yading ibang mata umpo ye de kahi society no me kipoy mo tho he no me aboy le society le aboy hi de ka no me yading ka boy na ha hung to ale fel ta ka sukhel ti na dinga ti lampi ti hol zo he ba na pakhat to ba ye no me VMA ti ka tu bai de hi na oma ti lele ye BPC no ye te e po usrate na la po do he election valley le VMA Vaiphei Mothers Association ti do dani amao area vela khan apo do ko le yi khawang tu bang ti an dia DPT na head PA po ti mai ti azik chu ke head PA le hong ti mai the but amao chu tun boy na khan tale mo ba khan intertribe sa hem ai lo le bang hem in boy na tale amao ho chu go hem amala zoding go hem apang zoding yo khale ngai to azik to mau chu posunga nupi ho hon mo ye ka abak ma thu he hi le a hi tak tak lo hi ye chun criminal case hong tale ai lo le thil dang issues tum hong tale ama ho chun bang hem abol ke demo ye chu VPC no ye poi ti bang chu ka he hi le bang tin claim bol de ti bang chu ka he ba ke
Mary la don no knock down mem.
Yeah. Madam June Rose in again ka hoi ka samay hi.
Le tu ni chu iki holim na wo chu Vaiphei Women Society or Association ti itam zo mi something like chu phai sak chi tu le I khut ki tak dok chi tu lang tu ni resolution azile pu dok ngal yang di yo next time.
It's a platform ai chui thei sampu na ya.
Anyway.
Hilale to initiative like as gengula to ni to apoi modan hung ki gen dok ye and this will be the first step jikha jikipana alung lut chi kha ngaidan group khat hung ki thenlang ajo phat hung chi to la ma like let's not complain about the past achi sa te kha chu achi sa tai le a hoi jok na dinga thu ki gen hi ma na til chu chum dana izui lo le dana lo ke ingai thu pi ma le aja igen go la dana man le ki bang lo tio bang kha chu ikinil na diu le pu bang jiam ti le min a in sung dana a ki koi hi ji ka chu in sung dan khan chi pi ti no man chu a ki bat lo di het sai a ji chu la chanu la doi sak dan le la an neo pen la doi sak to a len pen la doi sak dan le ki bang lo hi ji kha man le tio chu eu gen de le pu le no me chunga thil tung ai lo le no me ya dinga I chanu a dinga bang in sunga dinga bang dana igen gol kha go mo chan hoi pen bang I chan sak them bang thupi I bol pik them ti pen kha ki ngai tu zo le mo ji pen kha inu me te I choi hoi na ding ni zo dei chu dana po hao min thang in comment mo ati bang kha hoi chu very biblically very right bang jem ti le mo nei pa chu hung tai mo chu hung tai mo limin ki pakin mo a o chu git ngai chu ti bang chu mo ang I phal le chu biblical le a mo nei pa ta a mo kha aki pak dan aki lop dan kha a chu ma hi mo ki ti chu ka in sunga ka cha pan jiong ne le ka cha pa gul la ka cha pa ka doi sak gul la adinga ka cha pa tha sang dinga ka mu tu ka kala lop ti nai chu mo ki ti chu mo le kha neu khat theological lama ki chi la chu lul ki ji ka unique ma dan ngai tu ti no me lam te khan ngai selawen tu dan na igen gola sa pau inu te le sa pau thim ma o ke chu korea kum som da li kom ta ai bang chu Vaiphei pa hung le jil ka hi ka vak physic chu ban te dan ka gen gola inu ka nun nu apoi mo dan va gen ka tin kanu ka pa te hi ka palen te hi vai paite la ka la sak thiam pen chu chin za khu chu vai phe ke u pa hi aman pai te la sa le ke le new lam ka sei le na pai te la ka sei le na le thing ke ping ke ye ke chu me tin thing ke hu jing ke ye ti gol dan de lung thim ka ne ya ka vak ge num na pen chu bam te le nu apoi mo dan chu kan nun vai phe pao e tho pi te ka palen in pai te pawin vai ho ma hi le kan nun vai phe pawa ado nu te ya ji kha ke ya hung ping vai phe nu poi mo dan nu me poi mo dan ti chu ka vak ge nut na ya ka gen chu ting lo le mo
pa kuma ikyo limo da gule kim cha da kipani yemo da sa gile kim da ka khale kim wali tawo ibon ei holin na nik ma jing na lai question answer ri pathum lamo ma ongsim da pinka linda si non lemon ang doti Vaiphei culture su house at na ding in Vaiphei MIL hi ita le naute kilak sak thei thiet le aziek chu tu lai khang thak tam takin Vaiphei pau izik phatu le tam tak hi adiklo aumta Jesus dikit na ding in MILE kila ella kisim thei thiet le ti ka ngai dan a hi ala ngai dan chu ki pak pi ma zenga I think it's a comment question ai pu ji ka chun lo ta husim chok ka tin ta lung comment le chun mo vai pe namin sung khat ki hi ngai a phung dung zu yan no me man ki bang lo ti hi suk dik thei hi le vai pe women council ti dan deu khat ki nei thei le chu doi sak a hi ibono igelo hi ki bang ma je no zun ro zi nang long lit sakit ngai ne registered body also Samuel is vai pe na gen khate hi le chanu pi to chanu umje dik tak le hung gen tien piek thei diemo chanu ne chanu pi to chanu neo zia dik tak le hung gen tien thei diemo atie zi hi tu nu zon ro sin wan sar le pantin also next question hi le isop biological nu ahem alole inau nu ahem chanu pi ahem chanu neo alak apel pen thei diem di chai chu di question in nu zun ro sin wan sar oh
question o chu ka et lo le atam ta lo ka he bang khat po bak en pating ka tin mo dana Vaiphei culture suk hausan na diti linda in again hi dik ka mama ye nga ye ba na tu kalung ti ma hum khati tu invasion of English language kiti ahum atam mama ye ta ka tina tu tun sapang neo ta ho ye le anau do nawun mobile la bang ka to ye tun sapang adinga video tam ti asim te wa ko na tu kanau pa kapaneo sapa sangboy tanu bang he api le pu de ai sung mi te na le ngo Vaiphei pa ho le first what aman atarong bol si le sa pa wi na hung pa to ka lu khamu matai le khatiem ta de ite le khatiem lo ta de ite le ale ended le tin ta pang ho hi ta pang yen ta nga pa wen ta ye bang lo apha hem linda na gen le again hi dik ka ma ma ye nga ye ba na da na len boy na gen panu le pa pa sa dum tak ane ya ai sumu Vaiphei pa ho hi tak ta ai do ma ai sang le tu hi delhi hi yen ta le Vaiphei pa weekend phalo ding kai ti len gen ti lo mai ti kai kai Vaiphei sa mi eng le ama a hi achi ka Vaiphei pa wi a he tho hi le achi ke te ya tu ne tu ta so mai ti ti de da ti 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 ka tun nasa ta ka hi ha pana pan hi ina ki poi moi I culture hi hum tu na ding a hin I ha pan hi apoi mo ma yeng ti hi ka ba gen no ma ita te ho hi le Vaiphei pa wi hoi tak ta hi la e ma yeng in le Vaiphei pa wi bun tak tak hoi le he ding poi moi ti hi ka gen no ma ye ba na tin Vaiphei na min sung ha ji ngal phung dung zui a nu me man ki bang lo ti sung dik te le Vaiphei gen so ki ngai da ni nga ti wang tu dik ka sai til hi e ma a chum ma hum pha hi le ke lung gel danin lung thim ngai to na hi le a chum in umin ka sa ni de ka tu Vaiphei ka hi yang le tu til zo ti tu bang ka India pumpi uniform civil code ati wo tu ha panalak na wo go hin in le Vaiphei la ka hin chu nu me man ho hi chu atom atam ti hi ki da hen lang atang ti hin ti bang thi le bang chu ko ma yeng hi ti chu iti da no hi le apung hi ne ta hung ki he pa de hi le hin I dung del ho hi le atum hung hi zo hem ti hi ngai dan ka ne ya til zo si hi ti bang thi le bang chu hi le chu hi the set point ni le ke lung ge la hi neo khat hi ti dan ho hi atang pi hin hong ki bang dul dul ti le chu ilung ge ho hi le ahung long kom zo dem ti hi ngai dan kan ya ye ban chun tanu pi to tanu ne de dik ta hi tanu pi le adik ta ka chu aposal lam te tanu te ti mai hi ti ke posal chu thang loi hi ai le thang loi tanu khat kha ken tanu pi kan e ti hi tanu ne le chu thang loi te hi thoin tin ti ka posal lam tanu te hi tanu pi in a bol pen ti le in sunga be am pa ki ten da na hin ki pa mi hi ta le ye chun ne le ta ho le ti zo se in sung hem ding hi ta le bang hi le li ho zo se pa tanu pi na bol hi tanu ne mi ni ka ki tho pi ti ta he avai hom ding tu le be ta ki ta atu le la a issue so boi pi ding ta be ta he tanu pi le in sung toi ding in tanau in sung mi te tha sa nga til zo se bol ding ta tanu pi ti he tanu ne o te le support tu e tu so ya no ma so pi biological nu ahem alo le inaw nu ahem tanu pi hem tanu le la ka tel pen te di mi hi chu mi hian khatina lama mau hi le aboi na khata uma ye pen hi adek chu ki in sunga thil behem khatina ngum pha le mau le pang a ho pa hi sek ta zigin athu da nin thina bang hum pha ta hi le amau bang chu alum ke nga hum ka no mo hi le amau se di teng te ho ka amau tanu te ka amang son em hin tin hi le le neo ka to fellow na o mo ke le ka in suo ye go di pa bo lo o fellow na o mo ai ke le tu tanu pi le tanu neo hi tu e ma direct in suo ki zo bien he lo wa ne o ka ki kang de yo la tu in sung kana ding a fel loi ti le ka ba gen no me ti pa ki
a resource person Mary akikin ojekin ainu sieta vice president pa sar nei sil in again hi VPC in no mai man mat khom ding asiamu hi in ka he azui lo ati ati thu hi na ati chu je de chu de da me
ye tu le a tho wi ni dang a puleng pa la ya khale yi ho khala bolo ye ba na ki te na le wedding gown mat loading Vaiphei kien kwai mat ding ti ho le da na le si moi le enforce ball tu te ho hi ne ha ti abang khat zo ko ti mai ing gatin ye de ka to hoi ta sa enforceable ko ho hi ye ho hi tu law is ti mai le enforcement le ha de ngai koi mo
akipak piuma ma je tu ni ki holim na chu mi tom cha hijiang le mun chum um hi wo I tu hin first round kha introduction ki boss ke tu ni ki het tu thei di ba dingun ik gen nom te ong ki introduce ti mo le compulsion chai di ko yo meeting ong pangai le introduction bo khel ngai je ka to kita la pang pung ka ti kha I kha ko le ji kha hi lo zo ik het tu thei na dingu ik het tu ik holim tu khom thei na dingu ti kiu me robot ki pati nong ki pan thei di te mai lo le now to mo I mean to now to na po to okay produce na mo
Ake bono ka atau VP pa.
Pan lagi bol po VP pa lagi pan yo lai te le la camera le mon wakil lang
on ta pot mai ka
camera on lo tu bang ti ke di tawel le
ale adang kat introduce pon je jo
ala ko pan bang le pan
ko bakat lam min lun ta he bakat dari university Ramanujan College commerce subject teaching ka bola del he tu hi o ma in la ba tu no ma kai tu hi ka zi ka cha ko ka hiu Vaiphei research from a VP vice president in apanga di chan chi he oh ano mama tu ni chu
Thang Sun Tak. Thang Sun Tak.
Hong Kyung Geno le robot thang no kigen sing
Robot.
Ana pako ila blok lo dia kan om non itu. Kami tadi le ba thana hi tulai tak hin Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary MT sila kahi. Na tam zon de het heding tu selem be ST dia na chapa pen kai.
Okay.
Je bani second khat tu punta gi thu ge no ka interest ka sa. Ban ka research to de til ker nei takahi. Ka thilung takin ka support ka pi je bani maung ti je na ding ka doi san na sang pen
Somewhere you can introduce Naido.
The command is simply no. Samal Baite. He is the scholar of Mizoram University.
Okay.
Then Zilla Headquarter Education Secretary, Vaiphei Research Forum Executive Member.
Okay. So
The command again Simgam.
Dân này thêm Vaiphei. Dân này thêm Vaiphei. Thì để
biết quan le mẹ là suộc sắc tay
DNS soạn tức thì đâu đấy tham môn soạn tức như tu sung ngoài ipe flyer SMP bao hi
khơi bèn hết tiêu cái pa của mẹ
này môn thì đâu hiện nay coi ha
ruthi leo mà babak leo mà thằng biếc sang leo mà không chỉ cái này leo mi kau pe le ami tinga lip zat jeng ko i right ka chu ki din diwan chu vai ge i wak nai back lo di ta
rồi thi Vaiphei
ruthi không cái no lam la ku to không cái no
hello ai tu hi le ruthi a he go ati ki pat ka hi
half long te mo
half long te
ai le asam la ma Vaiphei in content lead long lang na wo le kit to le no le tu gen na long nei ngai di don nei
thế chẳng có thể cùng chứ đâu
ai chu la
ya te udor sa na sa na na ma dong represent na be asam la ma pat udor sa ka
bạn là chính nu Vaiphei lâu na
babak
soạn tức
cái là nông ác man hỏi và cái hết trong khâu sâu của bạn azo tu lai ta cái in lama bekel le nga ka umo tu lai ta in cái chú Delhi em sa nursing officer cái hi zak ta pipin ka hong ki gen nai ai le i identity ki za pi le ma i future to bright kel lo in cái hi zak ta sa ka hong ki gen ne
a ko ku
na nong ake
pa ku ta no la ki gen le sang se ka
thằng Quân sáng Vaiphei
Linda si non lim len la ki gen le la very important question hong dong khala
ma kha lawyer hi lo ma
Linda cái lawyer gì
hong ki gen lawyer non
lawyer tam de lawyer cheng
Next speaker is Linda.
Kay Linda, kay ito siya Master of Laws Manipur University ko po lang tadi. Tulay tadi KKP kibeto na ko musika video hi on the pot.
pa ko me
Ki pa ko me la no ake.
Mama ko Tang Vaiphei.
He the student due the university master final year.
Did you want
One subject?
Chemistry.
Oh,
okay, great. Thank you.
Then he Marvin level okay in lama sang no ko ni pa ki.
Tua hi item the throw item item moment thon can introduce nai lo the throw min thang. Min thang.
Good.
Hey.
Hồng Minh Thăng cái uni usul person te o timu di do su moderator nu di kalai.
Dr. Minthang Sontak, he Vaiphei Research Forum, the founding member, like a pang. It's like again who the he like he Amaldin go long loot bang ama he in there. Egil kiel nom le kim tantin twin China lam titino abang hile dakal ni webinar jo kinai photo here ilako closing prayer dinga Robert Thang ko he Robert Thang closing prayer ngai pia khen lang azo atole elole observatory remarks Pumang Thomas na longyan no padume isai mawen lasin
Chu ko lo.
Tuni igenu ka bak head do chu tigol hun gundi kineya VPC te kha pang te ding ela chiel ri wa ye bangkhat lam to VPC Zillai President Secretary Headquarter ti ho research banta literature ti te ho pang te ding ela chiel khak di wa ela chiel kha po mo jika kit phan le head te di zo ama na ngai tha ko ngai chu angai tha lo le eu bang cheng gen le ama na u tu to bo le yung tikit diu kha dana je ka kha je hi apoi modan ba hui TV khang kilanga tu TV channel YouTube channel nei shunu ama kan nasat taka je YouTube channel kha sombe bai ni khat le la shu diu aniu sang ole poi mo zo ala shu diu huti le je inu teo ai lo le inu mei teo voice hum pod dok pandi ti hi iwa genut kita YouTube le ki upload tin je kha ila share chit diu comment hoila ho kha chu khok poi le ngai dan kha la khom ding je kha khat bei je hi a china lo a pat nai dinga je nu mei lam lo pen hi khat bei gen kit theidin president nu member ten hungungal kit le chu nu ti ka ba gen hi
beginning hint in more. Vice President for the last concluding remark with things of the closing prayer. Vice President for again now.
Okay.
Sarnaisiel, please. La lunggel dan katunggen doko. Jika ulim na hit bagola next panmulat piting mo.
Sorry. Ken le hoi ka sai sensitization awareness ken hi ha to a decision khabalat paijing khale dem chang ka sa pongo hoi takin gian min phot hitin ho ti zo pat chu le hoi sa pai sak au me le mu le pate chu VPC te hi jego amau thumang lo wa ti bol khale hun nom lo amau khale hi lading chu eu kha min phot de win gian le ogin sensitization program dan do hi hi phot mai han lang mo decision kha mok lang jing de chu ki ho chenga ung lem chang ngin ka ding sapo chu ka ngai dan ka wak mu dan hi okay
Tunin ikaulim na hi hung samak bleng til patumin ikau kitok le marriage inheritance to bangha I patum khai kion dipenu kha so rights hi to for example itanuten ti ho zilam parin khatin ki tu ki classify thedi ging charge to ikau lam now azo kata nuzun ros na gen pen society registered hi mitam takile dikasa wo zile LB VRF le ama decision hi li thung la dingin zo tokle to so to dingin tha sa hi bonon digi sakti to le jiwan to I think tuni kyo lim na wo take away koi mo ta khat to di cho tingin paging aja azo adang gen of the dang khat mercy Vaiphei na mali ma ki introduce na ipo long ki introduce ute hello le long leave ka jeng diam tile la uma jek to e lo za kai ge po mercy Vaiphei hin long ki introduce them
kata nule ome Joanne
oh
ai chu friends lamte hum pau he
ama jong pa kan lang
alim leo kilasa ke
no mai ki tu he ma le nga zinga hi ila ko hi account chom ki join lo ta tam ti no mai ai le apa odium ta ro le ki kinor ko tino aje to zi hi khat hungyan lang last but not the least ke cho akam tam de ka hi e ti mo lang
It doesn't let boy. Even if you look at the feedback questionnaires, if, the last question was whether you want to hold it again or not, these sessions or not. That was the question.
Di kaken le ka feedback ka kapitano le pi tieto lang. Li modern society ki tieto hilale society characteristic social characteristic hati kong gen do khat nok ma jeng khat kuma le khai tiem tieto email le hoyo nunga te le email hoy tema ma jengo nunga khang dong hoy patient concierge kan wale me hoy tak taki umo le khale tiemo ifelo itom le tom ngayo hilale one characteristic Asian society le American North American native ten again so very diffident malimani initiative la lo mani le mani min again masang si again dok lo ti mi society hi na lai ti ken le Vaiphei society kagiging ta azo kaya tinga khat hong share leng anecdotes kan zenu kong akan zenu te ki khopna zenu cf ki khopna kan tang pi youth ki khopna bela chu pa sabji ba ki no to ma ziang a hi kat makasak ma ziang khat chu pa sabji kha atam to notice member le ki no to bangati le no bangati ki no to hi le international society international student de je ka kan Nigeria te to Kenya te kan chu pa sabji kami nong ge le bangati ki no to dem I'll pray ati ong ki hen at to di ka ti nong pa tak tak jinga zi society khang to dung zui in imin gending ti ho bangi kizak chalo theile wang chu this is my humble in the August gathering eu laka kisenstai na ka kian utahan lang to hin ilaku isu piparo batang kengin lo closing prayer ding nang nei kwing kaung chiel he
tau chap na nei ngi ti ole lalpa ka patiki do nangman hun hoi nei pi je khobela mi hing te jeng dingin no mai la salin pe siama jena chunga chung lalpa Vaiphei nam do pi tam mai pe siama ye ka ke vai pu na dingun nangman dan le du te ka le nawun achang le khat lam lalpa dinga thil hat jok lo na te om thein thil te ki lang se ji sukha na dinga chun Vaiphei Customary lalpa no mai tu pasal kilunggol tak mai lalpa ka luang khom thein dingun tin tun ta kuna Vaiphei research forum in platform zoom lalpa ye te ho sukha thein nang man hun tha gen ho phen hun le pi ki in le takin ki pak ko ki thi je mala to je tenga ka ho tu teu nang man lalpa pilna de chitna pin na kana mu lalpa mi te a ding lalpa engum khopa malam ka chi thei je le ding nang man je Vaiphei nam hinang man isu hal dia ding la king ko ton ki hi tun ta kun hun thali bi je kin la king ki pak thu gen komin izo che chu ta chapa esu pristamin la king khong don hi
amen
amen amen amen ki pak hi